We have arrived at the best part, at least in my opinion, the best part of crafting a story. And that's the part where we add in those elements that bring stories to life. You already have the bones of the story. You have the theme, the beginning, the end. You know the moment your change occurred, and you know the message you want to give. Your story is now ready for the next step. There are 6 things that will make your story come to life. 6 things that will make it more interesting and compelling. The more of these elements you incorporate into your story, the more you're going to enjoy telling it, and the more others will enjoy hearing it. And the more likely it is to be remembered. The first of these is emotion and reflections. You want to add emotion to your story. Emotions humanize us. Reflections show us what you felt or what insight you gained from what you learned, accepted, concluded, or decided to change. If in the earlier part of this course you wrote down the thoughts and feelings you had while you were living your story, this is where they come in. These are your reflections. Include these reflections to give us a glimpse into your process of change. Allow yourself to be vulnerable and let that come through in your story and watch the difference that it will make. Moving on to key number 2. Give your story cinematic quality. Keep the audience in the story by having a movie running in their head at all times. Have you ever picked up a book only to put it back down because you just couldn't get into it? It's not a good feeling. It is a big letdown, not to mention the money you've wasted. But usually the reason we don't get into a story is because there were no images running in our head as we read. It was just a series of events, this happened, and that happened, and that happened. So to avoid falling into this with your story, provide locations and sensory details. Include what you saw, heard, felt, smelled, and tasted, as applicable, of course. Compare these 2 descriptions. The music boomed over the speakers. Far too loud for so early in the morning. As I walked in alone, I sat down in a maroon booth that looked as worn as I felt. What am I even doing here? I thought, as my eyes started to burn with the familiar sting of incoming tears. Compare that to, I arrived at the restaurant and sat down. It was loud and I was exhausted and sad. One of these paints a vivid picture, the other doesn't. Which one did you find the most compelling? Probably the first one, and that's because there's a location and there are sensory details. The second was just a plain narration. The next key is good scenes. Scenes illustrate the parts of the story that are critical to the arc. You'll recall that the story arc is who you were at the beginning, what happened, who you were at the end, how you changed, and how you live life differently as a result. Look at the scenes of your story and determine which are essential to this arc and zoom in on them. Put them under a microscope and give us the details. But there's a but. Give us scenes, but don't give us any spoilers. That's the 4th key. Don't tell us what will happen before it happens. Avoid saying things like, then something happened that would forever change my life, or then something hilarious, extraordinary, or fill in the blank happened. If you find yourself saying that phrase, then something blank happened, check that it's not a spoiler and avoid using it. This is the equivalent of having a movie commentator talking while you're trying to just watch the movie. Do you have that friend or family member who says, "Oh, you're gonna love this part," or "You won't believe what happens next"? Well, now I expect something to happen and it's no longer a surprise, and once I see it, it won't have the same effect and the scene will be ruined for me. Don't be that person. Don't give us any spoilers. And key number 5, bring the audience in on your hopes, fears, and dreams. Make them known. This will help the listener empathize and resonate with you. They will walk with you and will be asking themselves what they would do if they were in your shoes. And key number 6, choose your tense wisely. I love stories told in the present tense. It takes me right into the story because the person is telling it as if they were there and I can live it along with them in my mind. This is not the way we tell stories normally. Because events that have taken place in the past, it's most natural to tell a story looking back. Using the past tense is natural and can still be quite compelling, but given the choice between past and present tense, I will always choose present tense because it is more active. I encourage you to try both and see what works for you. Present tense may feel strange at first as you get used to speaking as if you were living the story once again. But you may find you enjoy it more than past tense once you get used to it. However, if after a while of trying present tense, the story feels clunky to you or it lacks flow, it will feel the same way to the listener. So switch over to the past tense or use a combination of both. This is a good middle ground that allows you the immediacy of present tense and the natural language of the past tense. So, you now know how to make stories compelling. You have the tools you need to develop and craft a story, a great story. But how do you know when the story is ready? Let's talk about that next.